Should you invest or should you just save? What do you do when the market's doing what it's doing? Check this out. Now, we have two people here. We have Sally and we have Chris. Now, what we're looking at is should you save or should you invest? Now, you can ignore this chart here for just a second and just look right here. Okay, so I'm going to just erase that. What you want to look at is Sally makes $50,000 a year and invests 15% of her income for retirement. Now, Chris also makes $50,000 a year, but he's afraid of risk and decides to save 15% instead. So what's the difference here? The difference between Sally and Chris is that Sally is investing 15% into the market. And Chris, he's also taking that same 15%, but he's just putting it into cash. Now, Chris is not wrong. He's not afraid of risk. He just doesn't know about it yet. He doesn't understand it. And so here's what we want to think through when we're looking at risk. The graph here makes it look like both Sally and Chris are doing a good job, but it makes it look like Sally does a whole lot better than Chris. And you can see that here. What it doesn't show are all of the ups and downs along the way that makes that happen. And so Sally's money might even be lower than Chris's at times. In fact, it probably will be. But what you see is that if you invest for the long term, it certainly can pay off if you're invested well. Now, when it comes to Chris and his risk, the first thing I want to ask him is, Chris, it's certainly scary to invest. And you see markets doing what they're doing. That is not fun. But what's a bigger risk? When you're at the bank and you just have your money in cash and you're putting in 15% every single really year for him, broken down into his paychecks, well, you put 15% in and you are guaranteeing a negative 3% rate of return. And you're going, Ari, where are you getting this? Well, I'm getting this because negative 3%, that's the historical average of inflation. And so we look at that and we go, we can guarantee a negative 3%, or we could invest and get 10% plus, which is the average, like Sally does here. And what you see is that there are going to be a whole lot more ups and downs, but that's what investing does. In the short term, if you need money, certainly don't want to be investing it because you're subjecting yourself to unnecessary risk. What if you're trying to buy a house and all of a sudden the market's doing this stuff? And what if you're right here? Well, that's the last thing we want. The last thing we want is to not be able to buy that home because we're investing inappropriately. So invest for the long term. Keep money on the sidelines for the short term.